I'm JimWaters. Basically I live in Thetford and I was a director of 4 companies until the stroke, and with work I was travelling work and going to watch Bristol Rovers, which obviously is quite a journey from here. I was probably doing 20 to 30,000 miles a year. Anyway, when I had the stroke I was actually driving to, I used to work in the food bank. So I was on my way there when I had the stroke, and I drove into the back of a van which also actually fractured my sternum. I was then taken into hospital where I stayed for just over a week, and in hospital a lot of the treatment was on the sternum as well as the stroke, so it meant that I wasn't always worrying about the stroke, if that makes sense, or about not damaging the sternum anymore. Anyway, when I was in there, the nurses were very helpful. The one problem with it was in the middle of COVID, so they were obviously, it was difficult in the ward with the COVID restrictions that you had to keep to. And we also had one chap who, especially during the night, couldn't stop shouting and screaming. I mean, there was a story about it, but it's a bit rude, so I won't actually mention that one. But they then had a situation. They had some occupational therapists coming to me, and my main question every day was, when can I go home? And eventually, after about a week, they said that they thought I was fit to go. Now, before that, they'd had me, which I didn't know at the time was a test, but it asked me to go upstairs to get something. When I was there was a woman who asked me if I'd like a cup of coffee, which I said yes, thank you. She said, can you just grab a cup? And I looked to my left, moving my eyes, and couldn't see anything. And then she said, well, I said, I can't see a cup. And she said, well, turn around and have a look, which I did. And it was hidden. It was hidden behind a coffee pot or a sugar pot, which when you were able to look and move round, you could find. I hadn't realised that was part of the test at the time. But what eventually happened before I was discharged, I had to see a consultant ophthalmologist, and she gave me a peripheral vision test. And instead of having a proper machine, apparently it was broken, can you believe that? She gave me a toilet chain that every time I saw something I had to bang it on the table, which, if you can imagine, is quite a distraction when you're trying to see with your peripheral vision something coming from the side and at the same time bang on the table. At the end of that, she then said, okay, well, I know about you had difficulty getting the coffee pot, or coffee cup, sorry, and also with that test, I think you should probably not ever drive again in your lifetime. Which, as I've said, what I was driving for work and for football basically was bringing a huge part of my life to an end, so I wasn't very happy about that. But when I went back home, I then had some occupational therapists, and they came in and did the eyes tests where they had lines of symbols, numbers or names, and I had to go through and cross out whatever they told me, like, for instance, put a cross through all the numbers. Now I did that, and what quickly became apparent was I was missing the ones on the far left. So what I did then was, when I was doing it, I always looked to the end to see the first one, and then went to the right, which had the effect of meaning I didn't miss anything. So I suppose what it was showing me was that I was able to work around what the particular problem was. Anyway, I then at that stage had to apply for my driving licence again, and the report that the consultant gave was so bad that they wouldn't actually renew it at once. Now, during this time also, the occupational therapists continued to come. One of them took me walking around the field at the bottom of the road, which helped my mobility an awful lot. So it meant also that a new Doberman that we just bought, I was able to walk it. And had the stroke happened probably 3 weeks earlier, I probably wouldn't have been able to get the dog, and that dog's really helped me get my life back, because walking him now, he's a big dog now. I got up before we finally had all this bad weather to walking 4 miles a day, which probably doesn't seem much to a lot of you, but walking with a big heavy Doberman to control at the same time does give you a lot of exercise. Now, so doing all that, the occupational therapist still came, and they would talk through various things which they thought I ought to do to help myself. And they also said that what they would do, because they knew about the driving ban, was they'd see if they can get the consultant to get me to sent to the DVLA's driving assessment, which they did. So I had a driving assessment, and that was said to be fine. They thought I was safe to drive. But the DVLA still at that stage didn't renew the licence. Then luckily, when the occupational therapist stopped coming, then Stephanie's team came with the apps, and the apps were on the table, and you could test your peripheral vision, and for instance you could see lines coming across, and you had to follow the lines across with your eyes, and obviously it was just testing whether you were doing it and whether you were missing, I think. And again, that was 2 things on that. One, it was quite good fun. Secondly, it was easy to use. And I suppose the third one, which made the first 2 right, was it was working, and I could see a lot more on the app than I did when the consultant tested me. Once I was in the stroke service in hospital, until I was discharged, the nursing staff and the occupational therapists that came to see me were very helpful. The consultant that saw me was appalling, and I suppose at that stage I had a mixed view of what the stroke help was going to be like. However, eventually when I got discharged, then I was really, really very lucky, because the stroke service came in, the occupational therapists came in, and they really helped me. They got me to a stage where I was actually very confident that I didn't have a problem with my left eye, which is what the consultant had said I had. Yeah, so the occupational therapists came probably about 2 or 3 times a week for 2 or 3 months. And during that time they left homework for me to do, which I did, and probably spent about half a day on the homework. Again, because I was keen to sort this eye problem out as soon as I possibly could. Then eventually, when they thought that they'd gone as far as they could, I then had a request whether I'd take part in a seaside experiment with Stephanie and her student Helen. I was obviously really pleased to do that, and that was set up actually in the same place as I'm sitting now for this recording. That was done every day, and it was left at the house, and what was good about it was so easy to use, despite the fact obviously it was challenging to do, but to actually get it started was easy, and it never packed in once when I was actually doing it. So that went on again for a while, and at that stage I then had a request to try some other apps for Stephanie in it, but that sounds the wrong way around really, because basically what they were doing was helping me, so they were actually offering me some more help to improve my vision. So again, I really grasped that, and once that started, again, the equipment was left, it was easy to use, and I could use it every day. So even though they were coming think 2 or 3 times a week, it meant that I could use it every day anyway to practice. And very soon I was actually able to get through most of the tests on that. After the C-site, I was then asked to take part in meetings with other stroke survivors who were also undergoing research, and that was very helpful, learning about their experiences and obviously them learning about mine. Any requests I've had to help with the research, then I'm glad to do so, and I think the reason is it's changed my life back to what it was, so I'm just keen, if I'm able to help other people achieve the same. And I've never had anything more than encouragement both from Stephanie and her team. And I would say that these research apps, as I can only talk for myself, obviously changed my life back to what it was. And I would recommend that you look carefully at the research apps that Stephanie is looking to put forward now, and note exactly what the advantage is going to be for the stroke survivors that use it to increase their vision. Take care. Thank you.